Welcome to the Friends of Work podcast, the podcast about mastering emotional intelligence at work.
Oh gosh, my last work environment was amazing. Two of my bosses were awesome, and I'll tell you why. I've been pregnant twice, and that I gave birth to those children. Like I said, I had a daughter at 15. I had a son at 17. But what happened to that son at 17 was I was lied to that he died, and he didn't die. So I had to, and it was in my in working at State Department. I remember making a phone call to one of my distant cousin who is a nurse and who knew about that situation, and I called him and I was like, okay, you know what, I need you to just tell me, did this child really die? And if he didn't die, what happened? So I remember picking up that call. I was in the office and I called him and he picked up and he's like, yeah, that he was told that the child didn't die, but he lived up to about 6 years old, and that was when he died. And I remember walking into my boss's office. He's awesome, Mario. And he just handed me a tissue paper, and he closed this door, and he said, "Cry if you need to, and whatever the plan is, we'll figure it out. Here, what do you want to do?" And I said, I need to go home. I'm too far away. This is not, if I was living in Nigeria and working in Nigeria, it would have been easier. I can deal with this weekends. I can go like, you know what, weekends I'll go figure this out. But I'm far away from home. I have to go home. And I remember saying, okay, I needed about 3 months of work to go home and go at least scratch, find something. There's so much unanswered question. This child should be about 17 years old now, and I don't even know if he actually did die now, or and this is something I was told a lie for years, and they because I didn't understand how I could actually even get 3 months off in the first place. He helped me figure it out.
Hi, my name is Toye, and I'm the host of the Friends at Work podcast. You were just listening to Nkem Ijeh. Almost all of us have been through some emotionally traumatic situation or the other. For most of us, we're able to keep our pain to ourselves. However, there's some pains that are difficult to mask, nor do they heal without their effects spilling into our work life. Nkem's situation is one of those. As we spoke in my studio downtown Silver Spring, Maryland, I could not but admire Nkem's strength and be grateful for her candidness as she shared details of her courageous journey towards healing. And I wonder out loud how companies can help create safe spaces to heal for their staff who may have suffered similar traumatic experiences. As we celebrate Are You OK Day, today, September 13, let's ask the question and be willing to really listen empathically. Are you okay? And a big shout out to Lola Omolola of Female In for the great work she's doing creating a safe online space for women to speak out. 1.7 million women and counting are finding their voice on our Facebook group. Just before you hear the rest of my conversation with Nkem, here's a quick announcement. In the coming weeks, the Friends of Work podcast with Toye will be bringing you even more exciting guests and events. To support this podcast and to learn more about our future plans, please go to patreon.com/friendsatwork. That is patreon.com/friendsatwork. Thank you.
Well, my name is Nkem. For my Nigerians, you understand what that is. But the full name is Nkem Akonam, and I love that name because it has a beautiful meaning. And I hope most people call me my full name, but for short, Nkem. I'm Nigerian, and I'm a humanist, is what I say.
Okay.
I'm a humanist, and we'll understand that during this conversation.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that's the
I'm going to
best
try and figure
way
that out.
the best way I would actually introduce myself.
Okay. So give me a bit background about your work experience. This is the Friends of Work podcast,
yes.
right? And we're talking about emotional intelligence in the workplace.
Yes.
So
work. My work experience has been an interesting path, to be honest. I graduated from college in 2008 in India, and then I was married and I was overseas. Where my ex husband worked at the Department of State, so I was traveling with him. So we were stationed in Jamaica, and I was opportunity to work at the embassy there in Jamaica as a consular assistant. So I dived into the world of diplomacy and policy and being a brand that is America, to be honest. And it was fun and intriguing, and I loved the work. It entailed a lot of customer service. It entailed a lot of brand management. It entailed a lot of problem solving, and also finally coming from Nigeria and that fear of visa and being behind the counter where you're part of the people who are processing visas, an American visa of all things too, was also an interesting space. And my work space was quite diversified because we worked with local Jamaicans, we worked with the Americans who came in from overseas, and it was amazing. And having to also be part of the culture, because 24/7 you're working. Whatever you do when you're overseas and representing the embassy and America, it's work. So balancing all of that and being new to the workforce then officially. But before I got to that space, of course, I've done, like, in Nigeria, you start working from whenever you can get into the office. So my mom worked in DHL. So during my holidays, I would go to her office in DHL and work with her in Abuja. So I did that work. A friend of mine started a magazine and wanted someone who would manage operations, and I like people. So he called me in. I did that work. And I went to an American university. So after my first year of college, I went back to Nigeria and I worked at a bank. It was then NBM Bank. Now it's Sterling Bank. And I was in the human resources department. I was hiring and firing people after my first year. People didn't know I was still in college. They thought I had graduated, but I was good at the work. So after 3 months and I had to leave and go back to school, they're like, what? So you have not even graduated. So I've had those work experience, but then officially now you're a graduate. So you're like, okay, this is my first paid proper work. So that was State Department and that was consular work. Then we left then I was hoping to continue doing consular work in Abidjan, but that did not happen. 2010, we hopped on a plane, did my training in DC, hopped on a plane to Abidjan. 2 weeks as I was there, the unrest happened in 2010. So we had to get evacuated. The whole non-essential staff, as they put it. So we got back to DC, and that kind of halted that career part for me. But I was like, okay, now what do I do? I sat down in DC for a few months, about 3 months without working and not knowing when we're going back to post, and that was the first time I'd actually lived in the US for that long, for 3 months. That was the longest I've lived in America, even if I had gone through the schools, but I did all of that overseas, never did it in the US. So I went back to grad school in the UK, and then after grad school in 2012 I returned back to the I returned back to the US, and I was lucky enough to go back to working for the State Department, but here, which is different. It's a different ballgame because not everyone here is an American. You're not special anymore. You're not a diplomat, and you're not all that. You're just the average kid here at State. So adjusting to that workspace and adjusting to the fact that you're now working with only Americans who have it was a special thing being when you tell people like, oh, I work for the State Department, and it was a thing of pride too, because you know that once a while when you look at the news, you see the work, the meetings behind closed doors that are making things happen, and it's a world issue. So I'm proud of my team. I worked at the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. We did a lot of good work there, and being able to support the team that go out there and do that work was amazing. It was also interesting because I have a lot of work friends who are amazing, who had supported me through a lot of personal choices I had to make as a person, as a mother, as a daughter, as a human sometimes who is dealing with her own personal issues. And a lot of women who also supported the fact that you can do more outside of here. So in 2016, I chose to step away from the work I was doing then and go do some work in Nigeria. So I created a nonprofit in 2014. Actually, was kind of laying the grounds before I go do the work. And the whole idea was that I was tired of having different conversations about child sexual abuse, and they were not in the same space. So I was hoping that, okay, we can bring in all the players, the stakeholders who are talking about child sexual abuse, bring them into one room, have a proper conversation, and in unity, hopefully, go fix the problem, which is reducing child sexual abuse in Nigeria, hopefully in the whole of Africa, which is the bigger dream, the bigger mandate. And we've been successful doing that for the past 2 years. We've had two conferences that were amazing and quite rewarding, and also very emotionally draining. Because I think in that space you hear more real stories. It becomes more human, not just a story in the news, not just my neighbor's conversation, not just social media, Twitter trolling and all that. These are real humans in this space dealing with the challenges that it takes to keep our children safe, and trying to find solutions in that space and owning that solution. And we hope that we move forward and be better people. And yeah, so that's been my. Oh, there's one more job I.
You're
I
going to
know.
tell me all your
It's
work history right here. It's fine.
Interesting.
Talk to me.
No, I did something for 6 months, which was also very interesting. A friend of mine started a construction company, and he was like, "Oh, you want to join us and help us create a proper operation and process management space?" I'm like, "Sure, construction, let's go do it." I think I'm like a child when you just say, "Oh, you want to try something," especially if they've never done it before. I'm like, "Yeah, at most I'll learn something new or not learn anything and leave it, but I'll try." And I tried that for 6 months. It was actually very fun. It was really fun.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is great. Your trajectory has been very amazing. Well, everybody has this well laid out story about how you think your career should move, right?
Yeah.
Places that especially when you go on LinkedIn and you see people,
this for 10 years.
exactly, or they've
And I'm
worked
like,
in a particular field and they've gone through just this one particular path.
Yeah.
And it's great when you find your path early and it's something that you are passionate about and you go through it. But it's also fun to realize, someone like you who's worked in multiple fields and in multiple environments to do some, the kind of stuff you're doing. But what I want to go to is, why did you land on child sexual abuse? What really is? Because I know there's a big story behind that. And I'm trying to dig into that.
Yes. Why? Okay. The story behind StopSCAN actually came out from my own personal journey. And in 2012, while I was in the UK, I was opportune to start my healing in that space because I was rock bottom, going through a divorce, and I thought I'd lost everything because, coming from where we are coming from in terms of being a Nigerian is what I mean. Marriage is supposed to be, I was the girl that shouldn't be married at the age I got married to, because I was pregnant at 14. I had a daughter at 15, and who comes and says, "Will you marry me at 25?" So those are the things that was impossible, and my path to life has been, it's been interesting, like my path, my working history. So when my marriage, I remember when my ex was like, "You're not happy, I'm not happy, our life is not going the same route," and he was like, "We're going to separate." I'm like, "What? No, you don't do that. We walk through this, even if we're in pain. We stay in the pain together. You don't leave." So it was one thing. I think at that point I realized that I was no one. Because I'd enveloped myself in the space of, this is who I am. I've arrived.
So your
My
identity
identity
was wrapped in that.
Was wrapped in that space. And then when that's why I actually chose to go to grad school, because I wanted to achieve something different to make me feel better. So mentally, I had to do that. And I think that's why it was hard for a lot of my classmates to when they later discovered what I had gone through in that space, they were shocked because while I was in school, you could never tell that I was going through that emotional
Trauma.
trauma, yes,
No
and trying
trauma.
to
Yeah.
figure out what the heck am I supposed to be doing on this earth and why am I here. So luckily I met a very good friend. His name is Simon, who helped me figure out that I needed to start from the beginning, and the beginning was my childhood. And I had to accept that a lot of stuff that happened to me in my childhood is part of why I have where I am today. And I'm just using this marriage, and I'm using the marriage to numb myself. That had become my drug. And I'm using alcohol, and I was smoking then, I was drinking a lot. I was using all of that to numb my pain because I didn't want to face my own demons. So when I started healing in 2012, and I started discovering for myself a lot of things that were rooted in that experience. Unfortunately, being sexually abused as a child, and I'm still discovering a lot of stuff. I've not even scratched it all, to be honest. I realized that honest conversations were not being had. A lot of people are talking about prevention and protection, but it's happened. So how about we talk about the healing and the truth, and if it does happen, this is what and what needs to be done. I just could not find that space. I also couldn't find a lot of literature by Africans on this topic. It was very rare because I started sorting out things to read. I wanted to hear it from someone who has experienced it, not just from a woman perspective, but from an African perspective. So there are a few people I read their books that made sense to me in that space. Ijoma was one of them. She wrote an amazing book, poem collection of poems that helped me. I read it, and I went to. She had a Tumblr account. I actually found her as a friend, and she helped me. A lot of her words helped me because she's a Nigerian. She's an Igbo girl, and her pain, her writing about her pain and healing, helped me understand my own journey. So when I came back here 2 years after my own healing and digging deep and finding out myself while still being an employee and a mom and all of that, I decided that we needed to have a broader conversation on healing. So I created StopSCAN in 2014, decided to start the work in 2016 because I had to prepare myself and I had to actually face a lot of my own demons and truth, which was going back home, talking with my parents, letting them know a lot of things that happened to me as a child because some of them I've never told them about, and breaking a lot of that ice. And I also had to experience how difficult it was for me to deal with it if I tell people to deal with theirs. So that's where StopScan came from. And I'm healing. I'm still going through my own journey of healing. It's not over. Like I come back, like I told you earlier, I come back and I for a week or two I don't even leave my bed. But I know that that too will pass, and understanding that it's a process. I know that. But I just accept that okay, you need to deal with this now. But it's and I'm reading a lot of research now on this and why it's important we have the conversation on child sexual abuse. And specifically, it's not a we're not a gender specific. It's boys and girls go through child sexual abuse, and I want to have that open conversation about it.
I mean, this is huge, really, for me, and there's a lot to talk about there. How has this affected your relationship? Before we go to the healing part,
Yeah.
let's look at this. How did this play out, say, in the work environment?
Oh gosh, my last work environment was amazing. Two of my bosses were awesome, and I'll tell you why. I've been pregnant twice, and that I gave birth to those children. Like I said, I had a daughter at 15. I had a son at 17. But what happened to that son at 17 was I was lied to that he died, and he didn't die. So I had to, and it was in my in working at State Department. I remember making a phone call to one of my distant cousin who is a nurse and who knew about that situation, and I called him and I was like, okay, you know what, I need you to just tell me, did this child really die? And if he didn't die, what happened. So I remember picking up that call. I was in the office and I called him and he picked up and he's like, yeah, that he was told that the child didn't die, but he lived up to about 6 years old, and that was when he died. And I remember walking into my boss's office. He's awesome, Mario. And he just handed me a tissue paper, and he closed this door, and he said, "Cry if you need to, and whatever the plan is, we'll figure it out. Here, what do you want to do?" And I said, "I need to go home. I'm too far away. This is not, if I was living in Nigeria and working in Nigeria, it would have been easier. I can deal with this weekends. I can go like, you know what, weekends I'll go figure this out. But I'm far away from home. I have to go home." And I remember saying, okay, I needed about 3 months of work to go home and go at least scratch, find something. There's so much unanswered question. This child should be about 17 years old now, and I don't even know if he actually did die now, or and this is something I was told a lie for years, and they because I didn't understand how I could actually even get 3 months off in the first place. He helped me figure it out. He There were days where um they know that okay, today she's having a hard day emotionally, she's going through a lot of things, and we need to know that. And I was also the very cheerful one in the office who made sure everyone was okay, because I think if you've carried so much emotional burden, I think to some extent you have more empathy because you know.
Hmm.
So you tend that's why when I look at people, I say those people actually add that they're very strong. Reach out to them because their pain is usually more than they let you feel, because they feel like, oh, let me carry your pain so I don't have to deal with my own pain. And that was a lot of my own masks that I wore. So I took care of everyone. And that's why I loved my job too, because I could just take care of everyone, make sure everyone was okay. And but they also understood that when I needed to get into my boss's office and close the door and cry or take a little breather, they let me do that. And that actually helped a lot. It helped me plan out, not all the planning though, but to some extent, that's why I could survive 2 years of stepping away from work and doing StopSCAN that I'm doing. It also gave me a lot of courage to go back home and know that I didn't have to cry or think about the workspace. I could go take care of myself, which was very much important too, before I come back to work. And what another boss of my Oni came to almost every event I had outside of work. She would come to my event, even if she had a little girl that she carried around. And she showed up. She was my director. She showed up at my events, and I was open about how I felt. So I let them know, and I had private conversations with two of my bosses who were very understanding, and they have even friends outside of work. I spoke to only last week because I'm back. I'm trying to figure out going back to the workforce again now, and she was like, "Okay, you can do it. Just do X, Y, Z." These are friends beyond. They knew I was a human, not just
First,
yes,
not just
not
an
just
employee.
an employee, not just a machine that is there to fit into this bigger machine to make things work. They respected my humanity and they gave me the courage to actually step. It was scary to do that, but they gave me the courage to step away and do the right thing.
Let's stop a bit and talk a bit about that kind of work environment, because it's, from what you've described, it's a bit unusual,
Yes.
particularly in the American situation. I mean, if you worked in corporate America in any degree, this is amazing. This doesn't happen regularly. How do you think, and just from your experience, how do you think this kind of thing can be fostered? Because I'll give you a little background to how I feel,
Okay.
will help you answer this question
Yep.
better. Everybody, irrespective of our qualifications, irrespective of our gifts and talents and skills,
Yep.
we're humans first.
Yes.
And a lot of us are carrying a lot of emotional baggage
Yep.
from life experiences, no matter how well dressed, no matter how good looking, no matter how the trappings of life, how big your car is, how fine your house is. You come in with your whole history, your whole self to work every time.
Yep.
You can hide some aspects of it, but some will leak out depending on the work situation
Yeah.
and finding people who can understand when some of this negativity leaks out and say, let's help you see what it is and let's work with you, rather than, as happens in many organizations, you are cast out or
Yes.
you are treated in ways that make even the trauma worse. How do you create that kind of work environment? What kind of thinking do you think helps to shape this kind of work environment where the work itself doesn't suffer? Because
Yes.
that's the primary reason why you're here, for business, but at the same time your humanity is also being taken care of.
I think a lot of the new age work spaces have actually learned how to do that, balance everything out. In the sense that like some workplaces they have like you have a work buddy who you can go to and have this conversation with. Because one thing people forget is this: if you're not mentally okay, you cannot put in your 100% in any workspace. So the work, even if people don't know it, the work is still suffering. Even if you can make it look like pretty and all that, the work is suffering. If you don't take that 10 minutes and go into that space and cry if you need to, the work is suffering because you're not going to be focused. You're not going to give it your all. You're going to be distracted. But by the time you take that 10 minutes away and go take a breather, let it all out and just breathe a little bit. You know you're not going to face that problem in that 10 minutes, but you're giving that room, that chill room to go and deal with it. You come back, you're like, okay, good. Now let's focus. Let me get this done so I can go solve that my own personal problem because I'm here. And people forget we spend 8 hours or more in a workspace
Every single
every
day.
single day.
Yeah.
And or more for some people. And maybe I'm weird, but anytime I go in for an interview now, maybe that's why most people don't call me back. I'm like, I'm sorry. It's not about how smart people are, to be honest, or how well all those other fun stuff of shiny things that we tell ourselves. If you cannot relate with the people, your team, it's not going to work out. So I would rather have a team that I can trust and that we're loyal and maybe because I'm used. State Department has taught me a lot in that space because I have to make sure that my boss is well taken care of. As much as what is your child in the best school, is your child okay? Because I don't want her to go into a meeting with officials and be thinking about her child's welfare when she's supposed to be protecting
The national interest.
national interest.
Yeah.
No, so I have to make sure she's okay. I have to make sure that, okay, have you had your lunch? I as much force her like lunch has to be taken. Oh, how is your husband? Where is he? I ask her those questions. Maybe that's why that's why I said I take care of everyone. And to some extent, you feel like, okay, now we need to take care of her. But those are questions I ask. They may be personal, but that are things she doesn't need to think about. I want her going in for those meetings feeling like I got her back. And if that phone call comes, I can handle it for her. So I'm used to that workspace. I'm used to taking care of my boss, not just making sure her memos are right or her travel papers are in order or our budget is good. No, I also want to make sure that she's okay in the home front. And I think it's something we should put in a workspace because that's an extension of our family. Because the workspace, the amount of time we spend there, we might as well just be family.
Enjoy it
And
while you're there,
enjoy
at
it.
least.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
enjoy it. I don't want to work in a place where I cannot be excited about celebrating something my daughter. Oh, my daughter just graduated, and I'm all excited about it. And people are like, oh, you just shut up and go to work. No, my daughter just graduated. Can we
acknowledge
cupcakes?
that?
Exactly.
Can we
Can we eat cupcakes
can we have a
that is
celebration?
Okay, exactly.
Yeah.
And also there was something we did like once a month in my office. We had something called happy. We called it choir practice, which was really fun. Once a month. Yeah, don't ask. We never sang, but we called it choir practice. But we did that. Those team building exercise. It makes and when you're doing team building exercises, too, please don't make it rigid. Let it be actually a team building exercise.
Let it be
And
natural.
let it be natural. Let
Connecting.
it be fun. Let it be human. Let's not all be rigid. And it's okay to be a human. Remove a few of that mask. It will not make you less of a professional if you're talking about your human experience. And I think that's what people are afraid of. But I also think, especially in the tech space, that barrier is being broken.
It's been broken quickly.
Quickly.
Yeah. Yes.
Very, very quickly. They even celebrate not just you, they celebrate your children, and it's part of your contract that they celebrate you and your extended, your family is part of the company, and all that. And if we keep doing that, and that's why they're successful, because they know that, okay, not only are they being taken care of, you're also taking care of their family, and that gives them a peace of mind to do more work. So they're even working without you telling them to work, because
Exactly.
it becomes, oh, this is my life.
Because you're also protecting your family by doing it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're not depriving them of that family experience, which is because if they're not okay at home, if they just had 2 hours sleep and they just have those, maybe their spouse has had this conversation because you're not always at home, he's not going to come back no matter what. And we can't keep denying that somehow someone is going to blow up, because you're just going to keep it within yourself, like, oh, this is okay, I just have to make this money and keep making that money
and keep a straight face
at work. It's going to leak out.
Okay. I appreciate that. So let's move closer home on the process of going towards healing.
Yes.
And I know how, if just as a fellow Nigerian, even though we're not the same tribe, but I also know how difficult it could be to speak to your family about traumatic issues.
Yes.
I mean, going by cultural understanding, going by religious understanding, there's things that we know. We joked about certain things that, at the beginning, people say, that's not your portion. That's not I'm like, it is well. And all those languages where, rather than deal with issues, we kind of like sweep them under the carpet. Like, it's like, don't talk about it, It
will go away.
It will go away. It's like ostrich head in the sand kind of thing. Like, see no evil, hear no evil kind of thing.
Exactly.
So how did this trauma, and I want you to talk about this broadly, I'm going to keep quiet for a minute,
Okay.
and say, how did this trauma affect your family relationships? And how did you go about trying to broach this conversation? Especially, maybe we can start from when you had to go back home and ask about your child who was supposedly dead, and who's now alive and maybe dead again. That, I like you're laughing about it. You obviously dealt with some of this. That is huge.
I know.
That is huge right there. All right.
The conversation actually started with me and my daughter.
Okay.
It started with me and my daughter because she unfortunately had to deal with me being not wanting to deal with my trauma, thinking that all was well. And being that I don't care kind of attitude, she saw me go through that. And the relationship between me and her, even if I thought it was all glorious and fun, it was all fun, like, yay, this is my life. That fake smile and fake happiness, she watched me go through that as a teenager. So I had to start with apologizing to her and letting her know that I failed her as a mom. And which took years. In fact, she's still trying to reconcile that, the old me and the new me. So it's been a journey,
an ongoing journey.
And it's an ongoing journey, and I owe her first. She's my responsibility and she's my priority. So I had to have that conversation with her, and going through that healing process. And now she's like, okay, all right, my mom has changed, but I'm still expecting her to go back to her old ways, because it's hard for a teenager to see you go through the whole, I'm usually not at home, I'm partying, I'm hanging out with friends, taking care of every other person but myself. That's what she's used to. So I'm usually not there. Mentally, I'm not there. I'm there for everyone, but not there for myself. I went from that to, I'm always home. I go to work, I come back home, I go to the gym, I eat good food. I started eating clean, I stopped smoking, of course. I didn't drink alcohol for years. Like, who are you? Basically, you used to be the party fun girl, and where's my mom? It's not
Mm.
as if that's the best part of my mom, but I still like that's what I'm used to. And she coming back from school and seeing this new person. So I had to have that conversation every day, trying to let her know that I'm here. It's me now. Trying to let her know that it's okay. We can have, and our relationship blossomed
Mm.
in an amazing way where sitting down and making her hair was one of the fun things. Like that was our time. I remember when she was like, "Oh no, don't worry. Now let me go do my hair somewhere else." I'm like, "No, don't take that away from me. I want to be the one that braids your hair." So that was, and she, because she's a child too, she's young. She didn't understand why that was so important to me. Like, because I felt like I've missed out. I didn't braid your hair when you were younger. I I didn't have to drive you to school and back. So now, when she was in UVA, I drove her to school. She would call me, like, oh, I want to come spend a weekend. I would drive 2 hours to UVA, pick her up, and drive her home on Friday or Saturday morning, and drive her back on Sunday. And I was excited. That made me happy. That was where my happiness lied now, not in the outer world. It was about me and her. So after doing that for about 3 years, trying to build that relationship with her, I also learned from her how to be a child
Mm.
because I didn't know how to. I didn't know how to be a child. So I observed what she asked of me. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I can ask that of my mom, or I can ask that of my dad, and that will be okay. And little things like that. Like she'll come back from school and she's like, okay, for 2 weeks, I'm hibernating. You're going to feed me and I'm going to sleep. And I'm like, okay, you're home, so that's fun. So she would sleep and I'll feed her, and we would talk about every and anything. We talked about everything, which was really weird for a lot of people because they're like, you talk to your mom about that too. So that relationship was very important to me. And then I now took it to the next level, which was going back to my own parents, and that was my mom and my dad. And I'm like, okay, we need to have some serious conversation. And I remember she was she was with me. She wasn't with me in the first 3 months, but she came for Christmas. So that
Your
December,
mom,
she
right?
no,
Your
my
daughter.
daughter
Okay.
came. And I remember also being careful to understand that my mom and my dad are also humans, and they are dealing with their own demons. And I had to put myself in their place, as much as also knowing that it's not in my place to take their burden anymore. I had to lay some fats down, and not laying the fats down because I don't love them, but laying the fats down because this is what happened. And I need you all to know. Maybe you would understand why I acted the way I acted growing up, because I was the rebel child. Everybody didn't understand me. One of my very good uncles still don't. He doesn't understand me up till now, that even when his kids come to me, who are my cousins, they find a way to still kind of like, oh, she's there with her. Maybe she's going to corrupt our children. But my other cousins who hang with me, like, who? This one. So that's how misunderstood I have been. And I call it misunderstanding because what they think I am is actually not what I am. And a lot of success came out from who I am, which does not correlate to their understanding. And so a lot of people don't understand, how are you this way and your path is this way. Like being married at 25, well, to an American in Nigeria. Who are you? And you were not pregnant. You get what I mean? Like, he literally came and asked for your hand in marriage, and you have a 10-year-old. Who does that happen to? And I'm the village girl from one countryside in Akumas, and nobody should know who my name is. Now I walk into some spaces, they want the first thing, they're like, who is your father? I'm like, my father is my father, but I am who I am. So that's the extent of how much open doors I've had and opportunities I've had, not because I am the bad person they think I am, but because I've opened my eyes to experiencing humans. That's why I say I'm a humanist. And when you open your heart to accept people for who they are and experience them, a lot of doors open up for you. A lot of amazing conversations come out of that. It was difficult. That 2015, having that conversation was one of the most difficult experiences I've ever had. And I've had a few difficult experiences. Having to not only stand my ground, but also mentally understand that whatever is being said to me is not coming from a place of hate, but it's coming from a place of, I don't want to bear this burden because it hurts too. That's where it was coming from. But the relationship between me and my mom has been, it's been growing. And she's also one of the supporters of the work I do, the nonprofit work I do. In fact, it was because of her this conference for this year was possible, because I wasn't on ground to do a lot of the logistics, and she and her team took it head on. And we're growing on it. It's not perfect yet, but we're getting there. At least we can have some conversations, and I can go home now and be like, I'm just going to eat and sleep, and that is okay. And she would do that. She would feed me. And then when I choose to go in the kitchen, it's because I want to go in the kitchen and I'll cook. But those things that I learned from my daughter. So most people are like, I'm like, I don't know how to be a child. I never had the experience of being a child. I grew up too fast. I grew up since I was 5. I have had to be an adult since I was 5 years old because of that experience I had starting from being 5. So childhood it didn't exist for me. It's now that I'm an adult that I'm playing the role of a child. So when I tell some of my friends, just let me be a bum, just allow me. I'm catching up with childhood, and that too is okay. They just look at me, they're like, we know you're smart, we know you're hardworking. When you're ready to get up from there, you do what you need to do. So when I'm bothered about you, we know this is a phase, so deal with it. And having people to understand that too is a phase.
That's
and
very important.
Loving you in that space is also very important. So since 2015, I've been having that conversation, and it's been 3 years now that I've been having that conversation. It's harder for my dad. It's been because it's a man. Our Nigerian man. It's harder for him because he doesn't understand why I can't just forgive, forget, and move on.
Yeah.
And that I am a Christian. I should forgive.
Please don't let's move past that point too quickly. Because it's one of those issues that I have had a problem with in that thinking. This attitude of forgive, forget, move on, and people assuming that what you've forgiven has not had impact that you need to heal from. It's like
or talk
about. And that in fact, and many times the person who you want to forgive is not even asking for forgiveness. And on the other hand, this is the analogy that keeps coming to my mind. You're playing with somebody who loves you, right? Yeah. They break your leg. And you're like, oh, this person loves me. I do know they love me. But you've forgiven them. But that broken leg has crippled you for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
But they now tell you never talk about the crippled leg, because how dare you talk about the leg that has been crippled? Because it will mean that you did not forgive this person. I'm like, that talking about the issue doesn't mean that you haven't forgiven, but you have to deal with it because you have to move through. You have to move through it to something better. But the impact of what has been done still exists.
And the thing is that it's actually still manifesting.
Exactly.
It's still manifesting.
And so so please talk a bit more about that.
There's a particular, being sexually abused as a child for me didn't just happen once and it ended. That's one thing most people also tend to understand. That once there's a tendency that a child who has been abused, if it's not dealt with, that child will be abused again. Because I don't know if it's a rather, because there's a lot of things that happen. When a child gets you're introduced to sex at a very tender age, mine as early as 5-6 years old. The body is a biology. The body reacts to a touch that is pleasurable because that is what it is meant to do. People don't think about that, especially in the space we are in, because I've had to deal with a lot of cases where little children are like, oh, you're the one that is seducing the man, oh, you're promiscuous, you're this.
So they're accusing the child.
No, the child is the one that has the problem.
Yeah, not the adult. Not the adults.
How dare the adults be wrong? Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
So
good.
I should have warned you.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
So for me, that happened, and because nothing was said of it, I remember nothing was said of it until I was 12. Was the first time I actually opened my mouth and said, okay, I'm going to talk about this, because continually I've been sexually abused since. I don't even, when people are like, oh, how many, I'm like, don't even bother asking me how many, who, what. It's okay. But until I was 14, the people who sexually abused me were people I knew, who were either family friends, family people connected one way. These were not strangers to me. It wasn't stranger danger until I was 14. And I'll tell you the why the 14 on also sticks to my head. But when I was 12, I was in JS 2. I was in JS 2. I'd moved from...
That was the second year in equivalent of middle school
middle,
here. That would be middle school here.
That would be...
because high school
six,
would be...
7...
Yeah.
8th grade.
8th grade.
Yes, I was in 8th grade.
Yes.
When I was living in my uncle's house, and my dad's junior brother, he was my favorite uncle then. Like, he was the best thing after my dad, because my dad was my number one love, and even if he wasn't around, in my head he was the best thing ever. My mom would look at me like, you and your dad, no one can get between you and your dad. So in my head I'd build that image of my dad as the all in all, and my uncle was the number
next to him,
because my dad was not in country since I was 8 years old. He was not in Nigeria. He had left, and I didn't actually see him until I was 20 in 2000. Yeah, so even in his absence, you dare not talk any evil about my dad. How dare you? So my uncle was number 2 on the list. And so when I was told I was moving to his house, I was like, finally, all this whole stress and all the pain and all the trauma and all the things I've been dealing with, I'm going to a place where it's going to end. I think that was one of the reasons why I spoke out, when I realized that was not it. But unfortunately, he allowed one of his cousins stay in the house, who was older than him. This is a married man who, you know how Nigeria is. So he was working in Lagos, didn't have a place there. His family was somewhere else, so he was living in a house. So I had my room, my uncle had his room, and this other cousin, who is also my uncle in a way, because that's what you call every cousin.
Older cousin,
older
that's
cousin,
male is uncle.
So he had his own room, but this was supposed to be my safe space, because every other place I've went to was not safe. This was supposed to be my safe space, and unfortunately it was not, because this supposedly cousin comes into my room, and I'm like, oh gosh, not again. And I remember I didn't have the words to say it, because I now started spending more time outside of the house and less time at home, and I couldn't explain to my uncle why. But my uncle saw that behavior as me being rebellious, me not hanging out with the wrong crowd. He was worried more about the boyfriend I had in school and didn't know what was going on at home. But he didn't understand that, and he didn't know how to have the conversation with me. But all he knew how to do was discipline me, because he's been told that I needed a strong hand and not the conversation that needed to be had. So he called my mom, called my mom's junior brother, my uncle, to a family meeting. I think it was on Saturday, and said, oh, they need to discuss my rebellions, me not being home, me staying out with friends, staying out late and all that. And I was like, okay, fine. You want to have this conversation? Then I let the cat out of the bag. I'm like, why you all at this? This dude is doing X, Y, Z in this house. How about we talk about that? Yeah, think about it. I'm 12 in a family meeting that it was called on my behalf in my rebelness as a Nigerian girl in Lagos. So think about that conversation.
Did anybody believe you?
No.
Exactly.
That's the thing, because in that space now they're like, oh, you're bringing that up because you don't want us to talk about you being rebellious. That was the initial conversation.
Of course.
That was the initial acceptance. So it's so weird that even my uncle, my favorite human, right? That was when he stopped being my favorite human, by the way. My favorite human, up till now, is still debating that I actually brought it up. So imagine, so it was my mom and my mom's junior brother that had to confirm that when I was 12, I did say this, and then nothing was done about it. So because nothing was done about it, but of course I got disciplined for staying out late and all that, I'm like, you know what? I'm done. This is a battle I can't win. So let's all live and play this game. And it's okay. When I was at 14 in school, and then I said, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm not going to fight again. I'm not even going to talk about it again. I will lock my room. That did not stop him. You know, that is just, oh, I wear I wear pants when I go to sleep. That did not stop him. This is someone who was home with me more than my uncle, because my uncle worked on the island and we lived on the mainland, and he worked on the mainland. Like, I could walk to his office from the house, so he was more at home than the uncle that owned the house. So I had more alone time with him than the rest of the crew. So I'm like, okay, this is your life, just deal with it. It's not going to change. So this is your safe space. It's not your safe space. It's another nightmare, and you just have to live with a monster in the same house. And which is what I had to do. But it's that conversation that's been the hardest one for my family to deal with. Nobody wants to know, even if since I started saying this happened since I was 5 till then, and it continued happening. That has been the hardest conversation, because now they're like, okay, this uncle is still saying you did. This cousin, of course, he's still saying that he didn't do anything to you while you were there in the house for the 2 years you lived in the house.
What did they expect? What did they expect?
Then so I'm like, at this age, you think I'm still lying about that? Like, you guys think I'm such an evil human being? I'm 37. I'm still lying about what happened when I was in 8th grade. Wow. I must be such an evil human being. But you know what? All right. But the fact I'm talking about it, they feel like you've not forgiven him. You need to forgive and forget and move on so that this family can move on. I'm like, there's no family here. Because you guys think that family is an illusion to you people right now. And I sit down and I watch my uncles, because my dad is the first son. So I am the first grandchild. In fact, the next grandchild is the same age with my daughter. That's how much of an age gap between me and my next cousin, who he's my favorite human being now of all time. He's awesome. Neville, you can never tell Neville, don't go and sing him. Neville is going to come and sing him. It doesn't matter whatever family dispute we're having. And he always fights for me and defends me, even if he doesn't know everything. And I love him for that, because he doesn't have to defend me. You're 22, going to 23, go live your life. But it's like, no, I've lived this life. I want your roadmap to live in this life, because throughout everything that has been done to you, you still have this beautiful outcome about life and living it. Me, nothing has happened to me. Mommy and daddy has been there. The school fees paid, everything done. We're fine. And that's why I step away. I tell my parents, I'm like, step back and watch the junior ones you have, how they protect their children, and see how different the outcome is. My uncle, the one that I lived in his house, he has a daughter. He has 2 sons. They're the best thing. They're under his roof, being taken care by both of them. It's a different ball game. And the truth is, that is where the human experience starts from. How you are taken care of at home, how you experience that home, how you feel safe and protected, gives you more opportunity to trust your judgment, to trust your guts. But for someone like me, I tend to just go and hope that all will be well. That's been the way I've been thinking. It's now that I've had to step back and realize, okay, this is home. Experience home and learn how to trust your instincts and your guts before you go out there. I've lived a life of just keep going, keep running, because I've had to run away from everything. So you just keep running and running.
Because there was no safe space.
There was no safe space. There was no safe space.
And every child needs a safe space.
Every child
needs to understand.
You need to understand that safe space. I never had one.
And family is supposed to be that safe space.
Yeah.
All right. I'm tempted, very tempted to go into a little more details, but I'm going to leave that for maybe another conversation. But what made you broach it's a huge taboo that you've actually had to go against
Yeah.
culturally to speak publicly about this? What gave you the confidence to say, I'm going to step up publicly, I'm going to tell my story, and I'm going to help bring other people out into the light about this?
Oh, courage. Gosh. 1.7 million women gave me the courage. And I'll
Okay.
tell you what that means.
Yeah.
Um, in 2015, when I started that journey, right, of going home, a friend of mine added me to a Facebook group. And she didn't even know what I was going through. She just was like, oh, let me add my friends to this group. It was called Females in Nigeria. And it was a group by women, for women, Nigerian women. Come, let's talk about every and anything. And when I mean every and anything, I was in shock. And yeah. Exactly. I was like,
Okay.
whoa,
Okay.
this is awesome.
Like
And
people being real.
People being real.
Okay.
And I shared my story in that space. That was why I started practicing where to have this conversation without. It was still a very, very secret group. The reason why I say 1.7 million women, because we have about 1.7 million women in that group right now.
Mm.
But that was where it all started. I started sharing my story there. And the amount of this, everybody resonating with this.
Like lots of people had experienced it or understood it.
One way or the other, even if it was a little. Because for them, they just felt like, for you, it wasn't just once. It was so many things happened. And you just kept living. So it shocks them because I'm like, oh, like the way you got shocked, like, oh, wow, you got sexually abused at 5, okay. You got pregnant, you had your child, okay. Oh, you had a child at 17 and got stolen. How in the heavens are you alive? And what the heck are you?
How are you
happy?
how are you still in your right mind? Is what's been rolling. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So I started sharing my stories there, and most of those women reached out to me. They were like, whatever you need, just let us know. Actually, when I said I was coming to Nigeria and I was going to go try and see if I could find my son, they're like, oh, this is going to be challenging. You know, the fear. You're a woman. You're challenging not just the authority of your parents. You're challenging the authority of all authorities.
You're challenging.
You're challenging everything.
The whole cultural norms
normal things
of how things are
and
in
you're
that
asking
system.
very difficult questions, and you're going into this alone. How are you going to survive? So we'll be here to support you. People offered. The offering was so much. I get overwhelmed, and I had to step away. Coming from a place where you're not used to being, I'm not used to asking for help.
Of course, I mean, considering your experience,
figuring out things for myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was an experience after therapy. Oh gosh, therapy. Yes, therapy helped. Gosh, I have to put it out there. Back to back therapy prepared me to even also be able to open up to that space. And we're also used to Nigerian women judging each other. So, you're going to put this out there where Nigerian women are, how they're going to curse you and judge you. And I'm like, you know what? I have to let this go. And if I don't practice letting this go, that means I've not dealt with it myself. So I have to. And anytime I write and I tell a story of mine, I don't say it in a pity way. No, I say that this is what happened. This is what I'm learning. And I'm growing. So there's always something to learn when I write. And anytime I'm writing and all I'm writing about is the pain and not the healing, I don't put it out there. It has to be well-rounded.
There has to be a resolution.
Yes, there is, even if there's no answer here, but I'm walking towards it.
Yeah, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes. So I try not to write the whole. I did that when I was still in a bad place. I'm glad that Twitter is not what it is when I tweeted. Because when in 2010, 11, 12,
if you had said some of these things under this Me Too experience and all, it would
Twitter
scary. But it would probably have some more positive impact.
No, I was not a good tweeting human in 2010. I was like, men are bad, men are evil, marriage is evil. That was why it works, because I was in a very bitter place.
I can imagine.
But now I'm in a I'm in a positive light. So it's a different way when you write it. You write it differently. You express you're healing differently. That's why it's different from when you start healing. It's your language change.
Mm-hmm.
It changes. So you're not coming from just a place of pain, and only the pain is what you see. You don't see hope or lesson learned at all. So I'm glad I'm not tweeting. I didn't tweet then what I
What
because
you,
it would,
yeah,
it
what
would
you were
have been
feeling,
really,
yeah.
really, really bad. But Finn gave me a space to practice speaking out. And sometimes I still think I'm not even ready to tell my story.
Like to go
To
all
be
the
to
way.
be raw and in truth of it, because most people are going to be like, "Whoa!" But that is the truth. Was I promiscuous because I went through that? Yes, it's part of what happens when a child gets sexually abused. Does that make me an evil human being? No. Something bad that shouldn't have happened to me as a child. Can we talk about that? Not the symptoms of, oh, hey, bad to get you. No, not, oh, you're a teenage mom, we should throw you out
And that's
out of the public eye.
it's
No.
one of the scary things about social cultural norms,
Yeah.
particularly in Nigeria, about how the child is re-traumatized
Yes.
by being the victim of the trauma that they've gone through.
Gone through. Yes.
And it's one of the scariest things. I mean, I see this playing out. I've seen this play out in many people's lives, including mine, male and female, where you are the one that has been wronged, and you are not given the opportunity to speak up, or even if you, like in your situation, if you do speak up,
You're shut down.
you are not just shut down, but you are even castigated for daring to bring up the subject. And like, who are you? The elders are speaking.
Yep. How
It
dare
was-
you open your mouth?
Nobody's
like that?
looking at the facts. It's just
No.
it's just about the hierarchy. The elder is never wrong, and it's one of the problems I see with a society that will not, in my opinion, not move forward, because we don't want to deal with issues. And these are the things that play out in power. Imagine unfortunately, you're not the only one who's been through this.
Yes.
And male and female, there are different sides of how this has played out in society.
Exactly.
These are the people who are now becoming politicians.
Tell me about it.
These are the people who are in power.
Yep.
And they also want to use that same power to cover up the things that they're doing and say, don't talk about it. Well, we know, forgive and forget, let's keep it quiet.
Let's
But
just move on.
Let's move on. But these same people will go ahead and repeat the same thing. So there's no repentance. I mean, a lot of people use this Christian religious thing of forgiveness. And I'm like, have these people actually read the Bible? Because
Tell me about
repentance is what is asked for.
For
So, but a lot of people say forgive. But how do you move to repentance? Why do you move to change when you don't address the issue?
yeah.
People say forgive but never address the issue. And go and repeat the same thing. And I'm like, is this how we expect that a society will move forward?
And also, and I'm glad you connected that, because there's something people forget. The psychology of a family, the psychology of a child is what an adult becomes. Because people don't, then that's why I got tired of the prevention and protection talk. Because we cannot deny that this has happened. And the numbers are, you bring in 20 men, I'm going to use men as an example, into a room, and you ask them, when was your first sexual experience? Most of them, it was before they were 18. I've had young men who are who I speak with and talk to me and trusted me with that space. 9, 8, it's either one house girl or one auntie or one uncle or one person in school, one senior in school that introduced them to sex. Okay, you take that now, and these are men at the moment. These are men who are not being told that that is not right, because most of them have accepted that that was what made them men. So why are you a man at 9? You're supposed to be a child at 9. Why do you need to express your manhood at 9 years old, at 8, at 6? You're supposed to be a child. So something was taken from you. as a child, but most of them don't want to because of the body is a biology.
But
People don't understand that. And
society
even
also
also
says
says
that this is cool for
cool
a
for a
guy.
guy.
But if it
Exactly.
happens to
To
a
a girl.
girl, that she's the one that is the problem.
Yes. That's the two different, yeah.
The same
The same
situation.
situation.
Yeah.
But that is why relationships today are not in a good place.
Many relationships
Many relationships are
aren't.
not in a
True.
good place because of that experience. And he's 29 now going on 30. I remember sitting down with this young man, and he's still, until I put a female in a girl child in that space and say, okay, no, I asked him, if you have a child now and you have a house girl, and your house girl did to your child what was done to you, how would you feel? He was like, he's not gonna ever have a house girl. I'm like, that's why I'm telling you it's child sexual abuse, and why you're not accepting it. He's like, I don't want to accept that. If for him, if he accepts his child sexual abuse, that means something wrong happened to him. I'm like, even if you accept it or you don't accept it, your subconsciousness knows that something wrong happened. So in one way or the other, it's leaking into your relationship. It's leaking into the way you deal with life. Not accepting it does not mean it's not there.
Ostrich, head in the ground.
Exactly. So until we all start saying the truth to ourselves, you don't need to say it to someone else.
You don't have to go public.
It to me. You don't need to be me that has a leaky mouth like most people would say.
No.
No.
But you're helping people with this conversation anyway.
Deal with it. And the funny thing is that, like last year, even this year, to be honest, this year, the way men are standing up and be like, this happened to me, and this was what led to XYZ, until I had to tell myself the truth. That experience as a child when I was 9 years old is why I am who I am. And that's why I'm promiscuous. That's why I don't have regards for women. That is why I don't know how to express who I am, but I think that my libido should do the expression for me. Until I deal with that, I cannot be true to myself or be true to anyone. Because if you're not true to yourself, you can't be true to anyone. And people don't understand that is a problem. And that's what I'm trying to let them understand. I'm like, be true to you. In your quiet corner now, I can sit in my quiet corner and tell myself, okay, life is horrible. I could either choose to live or choose to die. But it's a choice I have to make. I have those two choices to make. So, Nkem, are you going to go buy sleeping pill, take all of them, and go? Or you're going to just understand that this too shall pass, cry if you want to, rant if you want to, eat ice cream, binge on Netflix, wake up and go? Those are choices. I have to accept those truths and make my choice. And my friends sometimes worry about me because I actually think about this. I'm like, it's unfortunate, but life has dealt me a lot of crappiness that even if I choose now to go, I think I've tried. And that too is okay. But I'm choosing to stay. I'm seeing hope in when a friend of mine called me the other day, and he was like, and this is one of the people who were like, nothing wrong happened. I don't need to face anyone. I don't need to confront anyone. I'm like, okay. But he did. He confronted one of his abusers who abused him as a child when he was in school. And for him, who is my very good manly friend, to say I approached him and I told him what I did, it felt good because now it was not my burden to carry anymore. It was his. He knows that what he did hurt me. And it felt powerful. And he called me, he's like, now I know what you mean. I'm like, I'm glad you know. To have that conversation. It's not just lay the burden, let them carry their burden. You don't need to carry that burden. They've hurt you already. You're giving them more power to hurt you by thinking that it is your fault. You know what? Whatever choice, they're not affecting you in any way. They are affecting you in any way, some way or the other. Your life choices have come from there. So you've continually given them room in your life
to keep moving your life in the wrong direction.
In the wrong direction. You need to pause and figure out, oh my God, what have I done? How much power have I given these people? I've not been living my life, my true self. I've not been who I want to be. So now, what do I want? Now you start trying to consciously make those decisions for you. So sometimes when I get angry or I feel anyway, I'm like, okay, am I angry because of now or because of my past? I kind of psychoanalyze myself that way now and ask myself those questions. Because at the end of the day, I have to be true to myself. I can lie to every other person. But you have to be true to yourself. And that's what I tell people. Don't You can write it in one corner, it can be in your head, but do not deny that something that happened to you as a child is not affecting you now as an adult. Because then you giving them so much power.
Okay, so this conversation, yeah, I'm actually leaving a lot of things out because we could go on and on, but we need to bring it to a close soon. But before we do, I want to talk a bit more about how to support your efforts with your nonprofit. Both people who live in the United States and who live in Nigeria and elsewhere. How can we support your efforts?
Yes. There are a lot of ways people can. Most importantly, money. Financially. And I say financially because there's this huge project we have in mind that we want to do, which is a documentary. We want to tell human story, and when I mean raw human story, I approached a movie director in Nigeria. He's amazing. I had to handpick him because he knows how to tell stories. He has done it before.
Done good stories.
He has done good stories before. I've also reached out to a few of my sisters in the movie industry who are good directors, and I told them I want someone to tell my story. Actually, they are making me tell my story and going through a lot of parts of my story, starting from there. And we wanted to choose someone who is good at making me push myself beyond my comfort zone. And I need to be true and I need to be raw. And some of the stories need to be told. So we're trying to do that. And we're hoping that we would raise the funds to be able to shoot that movie and use that as a conversation starter on what it is that actually happens to a child.
All right. So do you have a website? Do you have a contact that we can use to reach you on that?
We have a website. It's StopSCAN.org.
Can you spell that out?
Yeah. StopSCAN.org. Also on all social media, when I mean all social media, I mean Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on YouTube. You can find us as StopSCAN. StopSCAN is our handle. So that's StopSCAN. Reach out to us on our website. There's an email address, info@stopscan.org. It's our general email, and I access it. So there's a human behind it. Reach out to us and let us know how you can help. We're a 501c, so all your donations for us in the U.S. is tax exempt. If you have an organization or a company, a small company, and you don't have a CSR yet, we are transparent with you would see our books and you would see all our accountants. So we're transparent with our funds and the work we're doing. So please reach out to us and let us know we'll let you know how we can work together and tell our own true stories.
Thank you for listening to this episode. You can support this podcast by going to patreon.com/friendsatwork. That's patreon.com/friendsatwork. You can also reach me by email at myfriendtoye@gmail.com. My Facebook page is Friends at Work Podcast, and my Twitter handle is at Friends at Work US. Join me next time for another episode of Friends at Work Podcast with Ade Toye. Bye for now.